All right, folks. So that was a lot of information that was great this morning, wasn't it? What I'm going to talk about today is how do we scale all that stuff, right? It's one thing to go out and do a couple stations, do a couple pilot projects, a couple truck depots, a couple fleet light-duty vehicle depots. It's quite another to have to try to figure out what we're going to do to get to 2030 kinds of numbers. And I appreciated all the policy conversations today about it's catching on. A lot of states, a lot of the federal government, a lot of fleet operators, a lot of the OEMs. For their survival, I love that somebody appreciated that point too. It's really for the survival of the light-duty vehicle market here in the United States. The truck manufacturers assure me it's also about their survival. They see the Chinese trucks coming one day. And so they're also nervous, but they're not nervous like the light-duty vehicle manufacturers, that if they don't get this figured out and stay ahead of the technology, they don't actually know who they'll be selling cars to except a few 14 million Americans. And that's not a global market anymore. So let me just dive into EVs to scale 2030. It is exactly what it says. How do you scale and reach those numbers by 2030? What has to happen to prepare the grid? I'm at EPRI. I came from automotive, General Motors. I know a lot of you. It's a lot of nice, friendly faces here in the audience. We've been working together a very long time on this. So I have the automotive background, trucking, the fleet operators as well. Now it's the utilities. How does the grid get ready for all of this? When they're all regulated differently, they have different boards, and there's an awful lot going on that they have to prepare for. So you see all that alignment happening up here. What's not really been clear for as long as I've been working in the market, and a lot of us talk about this all the time, this pace of what was needed every year. What should we have done last year, this year, next year, the year after? What do we have to do every year? What should we be investing? How much confidence do we believe there is in this market happening this year and not 2 years from now? Can we keep kicking that can down the road or not? And we are very worried that we've been kicking that can down an awful long time. We're missing these moments where things are maybe a little bit quieter, but wait till we start approaching 2030 when these numbers are so phenomenally large that no one has time to think anymore. If we haven't tightened up processes, if we haven't figured out how to get 3,200 utilities working better together, if we haven't figured out a better way for fleet operators and charging property developers to get in touch with utilities, we are going to be out of time, and that will be a real disaster in execution. Just not going to happen. So the bottom line is we needed to drive. We had to think of something, a program that would change behaviors, change action, change investments, and we needed to have confidence to do that. If the one thing we could do is just where and when are the loads coming, that would be already a phenomenal improvement. So we created a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago now, we created a program supposed to last only 3 years, get all this stuff done in a quick 3-year period. We're well on our way with 3 major deliverables. I'll talk about 2 of them today. But it's about getting the data and the voice of everyone who's actually leading and doing something. Not the laggards and the rejectors, that doesn't matter. The ones who are doing stuff, can we all talk together and work together about when and where those loads are going to come? Can we put together something that looks like maybe a 50-state roadmap of getting from here to 2030? How confident should Arkansas be, or Texas be, or Illinois be? And where are those loads going to be showing up? Where does the grid need to be enhanced? And where can we do it more proactively? Second column, the processes that they were designed for buildings. Buildings can take 2 years, 4 years to build. Housing development can take 20 years or 40 years to build out. That's not what transportation is, right? I can order a fleet of heavy-duty trucks from Daimler or Volvo today, and they can be delivered in 4 to 6 months. Can the grid be ready with 1.5 megawatts, 2.5 megawatt, 3, 4 megawatt load in that same 4 to 6 month period? And the answer is no. We've got to do something different about moving the lead time years ahead of time, not just when I think I'm ready to fill out the service request for application with the utility. So get the processes right, and then are there actionable tools, maybe some pilots, but really it's about the tools to change behaviors. Can we create some decision-making tools that look different to everyone now? It drives more confidence. You have confidence in the data. So let me talk about eRoadmap, and I'm going to talk about GridFast here today too. Underlying everything is a work stream on just regulatory. Let's not leave things on a bookshelf, just a report on a shelf or a tool that no one uses. How do we turn it now into informing regulators about what's happening and why they have to act, why they have to allow utilities to act more proactively, and then an equity and workforce development blueprint, because we're not going to get to scale if we don't fix those two, address those 2 opportunities too. Just to give you an idea of how we just made this too big to fail, we tried to get exactly the right board together, the advisory board for this initiative. So you can see Patty Poppy's the CEO of PG&E, arguably one of the toughest utility jobs in the entire country. She's the chair of this entire initiative. We've got a bunch of utilities representing all three makes and models, the IOUs, the rural co-ops, and the municipals. And then we've got the three big associations for utilities. We've got a representative from NARUC, it's Commissioner Paratic from Michigan. She's a utility commissioner. She's wonderful to have on this board. She is advising also along the way. Did you think about this? What about that? We're not going to be convinced if all you have is that. You're going to have to do you're going to have to do better. And then we've got the Auto Alliance, virtually all the light-duty vehicle manufacturers in the United States. Amazon's on the board, Caterpillar's on the board. Daimler Truck is the voice of one of the most forward-leaning truck manufacturers, and then the joint office, Rachel Nealer's on the board too. So just an idea about we're thinking about how this can be successful, and don't miss a beat. We're going to do this once, we're going to do it right, and try to get it done. So one of the big things is about the data. The most important thing, every regulator tells us, every utility tells us, every executive out there tells us, is just can we be more certain about when and where the loads are going to come. So data is really critical to something I'm going to call eRoadmap. It's a public tool that's out there now. It is our communication tool. It was the visualization of where and when loads are going to show up on the grid using the best data we could assemble. The best data, I think, ever assembled. We bought everything you could buy from Experian, Geotab, INRIX, and Replica. So that's Google cell phone data, that's registration of all the vehicles, and then movement data and behavioral data from Experian and from Geotab and INRIX on the medium and heavy duty vehicles. Then we started filling in with all these forward-leaning fleets, and I've got every day, in fact, I can't say the name of the company, but it's a very big company that delivers a lot of chips and cola products, and we now are getting, their data's coming in. And so the idea is to keep adding to real deployment plans where and when their fleets are going. These are very national fleets in general. This slide should also have shown Republic Services, which are the garbage truck company that's also leading in electrification. So they've been added to this slide also. When we get more and more, as we get more and more real data, it crowds out the modeling that everyone has to do. We don't want to model forever. You have to do it because it's hard to predict where light-duty vehicle sales are going to be, for example. But when we can get heavy-duty sales in here, heavy-duty fleet adoption, and plans to outfit those depots with chargers and so on, then we're really talking about crowding out data that's just algorithmic or modeling. And that's where we're getting really, really strong. So I've got two or three more fleets I'm going to add in here any day now as soon as I get permission to show that, just to let you know what it looks like. So here's eRoadmap. This is the publicly available communication visualization tool. Make a map, because everybody understands a map. A dark spot probably means a greater load than a lighter spot on this map. There's a calendarization of this thing. What happens this year? What's our projection for the loads that are coming this year, next year after, the year after that, all the way to 2030, where there's a stake in the ground. There are a lot of mandates, regulations, and other things that are also in this tool. And then also we have a full electrification case, just so that the utility industry could see three different frames of reference. What's happening in the near term, if I'm including the Amazons, the Pepsis, the Cokes, the FedExes, and so on in this model. What's happening near term? What's happening in 2030 and midterm, and what's happening long term? So I make good decisions, better decisions today than if I didn't have a sort of a pathway or an understanding of where this goes down the road. All right, so this is what it is. You can use it on your own. It's eroadmap.epri.com. It's interactive. It's a lot of fun to use. You get really absorbed in what it tells you. If we look at just the west side of New York, the Buffalo area and Tonawanda, you can zoom down in here, down to the feeder level. This is what's really important about this tool, is it had to be at a feeder level because it has to be something that's investable, something where someone could actually take an action and start counting up transformers or feeders that have to be upgraded. Not state level, not county level, not even zip code level. So you zoom down into Buffalo. I grabbed 3 years, 2027, 2030 in full electrification. I just want to know what that blue dot is up there, that blue hexagon, which is one feeder. It's about 0.28 square mile area. And what does that tell me up there? If we go look at the satellite view and also what's happening there, it looks like in 2027, there's a total energy need of 16 megawatt hours. It's all coming from the heavy duty sector. And if we go pop down here and see who operates in that hexagon up there, Amazon, FedEx, and then 4 companies that I don't think I recognize. But all you have to know is that Amazon's data is in this data set. They have their entire deployment plans up through 2030 in this set. It's real data. So if Amazon's working in here, and you know that FedEx is also leaning in to electrification, that's the confidence driver. And this is what the regulators have told us, like Commissioner Peretick in Michigan. This makes all the difference in the world to them. It's not a utility just reaching out for, hey, I'd like to get busy doing this. I'd like to invest $100 million. They want the evidence. They want to know that someone is talking to them from the fleet in the execution side. So that's eRoadmap. What we've also started to do is we interviewed everybody for these tools. We interviewed the fleet operators and the charging providers and the property developers and the manufacturers of vehicles. And one thing that became very clear is that everyone wanted finally a tool that just showed the capacity on the feeders across the United States. Could we slowly, it's not going to happen overnight, could we begin to aggregate all of the available hosting capacity maps in the country? California's already mandated the IOUs. You've got the Northeast that's got a bunch of them. So you see the gray areas? That's where we are so far. 14 utilities have agreed to share their hosting capacity maps with us. You can zoom down into the map and have a look at that feeder line where I just showed you where Amazon and FedEx are busy on the west coast of New York. You can actually go in there and see, well, what's the hosting capacity on that feeder that serves that line? Maybe it's positive 6 megawatts, and it's plenty. Maybe it's not. So that's the challenge. That's the opportunity here. So this is getting an awful lot of attention too. We have plans to continue to grow this. We've got about another 24 utilities we're working with to continue to grow this capability. Phenomenal achievement so far, but more to come here too. The key I said before was to move the lead time notice much earlier than just what starts today with a service request application. That's too late. Too late. Trucks are probably already on order. Vehicles are coming. And by the way, I can make all these slides available to all of you. That's fine too. So what do we do to move way in front of a service request? What can we do to move this information out? Well, certainly eRoadmap is the visual public communication tool. We can start to drive actors to start acting. We have also now begun to develop, and it's going to be due out the end of the year, a platform. It's a secure online data exchange platform that is a more private tool. This will encourage all fleet operators, anyone with load coming relative to transportation projects, that will allow them to communicate with one of 3,200 utilities on the grid. You don't have to guess who the utility is that serves a different inch of the real estate in the United States. It's all going to be in this system. You'll know who to contact for transportation. You will be able to upload information about what you think you'll need in 4 years at a site. Don't wait for the service request. Early information. 2 megawatts in 2028, 3 megawatts in 2029. The utility can respond with, here's the capacity we have today, here's what we could have later down the road. So this is all happening, and what's really exciting is, I didn't think that we could get, I'm gonna go right back to, one more slide, can I go back? I didn't think that we could actually do the one other thing that every fleet operator wanted out there, and that was to make utilities look more alike in their service request processes. They're all different. The processes are completely different, even between SCE and PG&E out in California. There was a very strong request to try to commonize the application process. And so we are doing that. Patty Poppy, the CEO of PG&E, stepped up and said, I want to be the first to say, I will go common, whatever that looks like, the common vocabulary. We just have to clean up what is going to be a very, very difficult transition for the utility industry. I'll do my part, I'll bend, we'll cater to what the greater general consensus is on what service request process should look like, at least the preliminary upfront process of pushing all this information over to the utilities. So GridFast is going to include a common service application process for the utility industry. No more guessing, who is the utility on the other end, and what do we have to do to start to request service and give them a heads up that service is coming years from now, hopefully not just, again, 4 months, 6 months, as is sort of the process today. And that's it. With that, I wanted to just simply, let's see what I have here. There are a number of other things that come out of this thing. The VPL is another thing maybe I'll just quickly mention. The vetted product list. Our lawyers wouldn't let us call it an approved product list. It is a vetted product list. All we do is we have a complete list on this, again, public website of all the charging equipment, level 2, DC, the networking software that goes with it, and we vet it against common industry standards or things that are actually required generally, like UL certification. Made in America, some of the new Department of Energy and Joint Office requirements are in here too. What hardware is compliant? We did this because there were certain very select groups of charging providers that were allowed to bid, for example, on any California projects. And it just didn't seem right that only because you knew about someone, that's the hardware you have to choose. So we wanted to make more transparent what's all the hardware that's out there and what's compliant with what, so that we can actually try to raise the bar of reliability of the charging, the networking software, et cetera. So I want to call to your attention the VPL. I've talked about the e-roadmap, and then GridFast is coming, but again, that's more of a private tool behind the scenes that might change the entire behavior of the utility industry. And with that, I want to thank you for your time today. I'm happy to take questions out in the hallway or afterwards, any breaks, and thank you for the privilege of being here today.